Hello Internet, my name is Andrew Eder, and welcome to another episode of Film Editorials. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 comes out this weekend. I've seen it already, and it's definitely a movie about Spider-Man, but is it actually amazing? Let's talk about it. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 picks up pretty much exactly where Amazing Spider-Man 1 left off. Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, played by Andrew Garfield, uses his spider-related superpowers to save New York repeatedly from crime and criminals and accidents of various kinds. He has a girlfriend, Gwen Stacy, played by Emma Stone, so things are looking pretty good for him, except he's still bugged by the mystery of why his parents left him at his aunt and uncle's house. So generally, things are going pretty well for Peter until genetics-related industrial accidents take place at the Oscorp building, because nothing good ever seems to happen over there, releasing a couple more supervillains on the world that Spider-Man has to stop, except they're even more dangerous than the lizard from last time. Oh no! I actually had pretty low expectations for this movie. I went in expecting it to be a confused mess, and it actually wasn't that bad. There were a lot of things in this movie that I actually really enjoyed and I liked and I thought they did well, but there were also a lot of things that really bothered me. The action and the effects were both really good generally. The movie is very exciting, and I saw it in IMAX 3D, and that is a gorgeous way to see it. If you've seen any of the IMAX 3D trailers, they're not as nice as the actual movie itself, which you'd kind of expect, but I was still expecting it to be blurry and dark and kind of headache-inducing, which is the feeling I was getting from the trailer. But by the time you get to the fast-paced action in the movie, your eyes have adjusted to the 3D, and it actually worked really well. I didn't have a problem with it at all. Really, the only time I wasn't impressed with the effects in this movie was when Paul Giamatti's Rhino character comes out. It looks really fake. I didn't care for it. The movie's also quite funny, which I liked. There are parts of it that are maybe too silly and campy, and I didn't care for those. But Spider-Man does get to have funny lines and gets to be sarcastic with the villains, and that's always enjoyable. I like that kind of attitude, and I think Andrew Garfield brings a lot to the character in that regard. Certainly more than Tobey Maguire ever did in the original Spider-Man series. I also liked Emma Stone's character. She did a really good job and could hold her own with Garfield. The back and forth the two of them have feels genuine, probably because they're actually a couple in real life, so that helps. But I thought that she did a really good job, and I liked what they did with her. Not to give anything away, but I was surprised they did what they did with her. Fans of the comic know what I'm talking about. Not going to spoil it for everyone else. If you do know what I'm talking about, don't spoil it for anyone else, please. I also like Jamie Foxx's Electro. He's the main villain of the story, I guess. And while his motivations are a bit weird and maybe a little bit confused, I thought they did a good job, and I thought he just worked generally. And he was very threatening in all the right ways, and I liked him. And now for some of the things I didn't like. Number one, the music. Parts of it are fine. I'm assuming they're the orchestral pieces written by Hans Zimmer because they're fine and they're appropriate. But there are other songs that take you completely out of the movie. The part where Electro really gets unveiled and you get to see his powers for the first time has kind of this techno chanting going on in the background. Except it's not really the background because you can still hear all the words extremely clearly over the dialogue that's taking place in the movie. And that just rips you right out of the experience of sitting in the theater. Suddenly you are aware that there's a speaker behind you and to your right. It was so frustrating. I don't know why they did it. A little bit later, there's a music video for Gone, Gone, Gone. I think that's the name of the song. I don't know. All of a sudden, Peter puts in some earbuds, and now we're listening to this music video. Like, the whole song. Was that necessary? Really? Why are we doing that? The second thing that really bothered me was Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn. I like Dane DeHaan, don't get me wrong. He was amazing in Chronicle. I love that movie. But the Harry Osborn character just doesn't make any sense in this movie. I can't really get into why I don't like his character because it would be really spoilery, and I don't want to do that. But I don't believe for a second his relationship with Peter. It's totally out of left field. His character arc is obvious and transparent from the first time you see him on screen, and his action scenes toward the end of the movie are kind of irrelevant and pointless and excessive. He has a nice bit in the middle of his character arc, which I was actually really enjoying, but then it just goes back to being like tacked on for the rest of the movie. I don't feel like I'm explaining this well, but that's because I'm really trying to avoid any spoilers for people who don't know the story already, which probably isn't that many of you, but I'm doing my best, people. There are a few other slightly smaller things that bugged me too, like Peter's dad is an action hero at the start of the movie, and then Peter's dad also has an underground lair. I feel like Paul Giamatti got totally underutilized, as did Chris Cooper as Norman Osborn. They're there for maybe 5 minutes between the two of them, and I just wanted to see more of them. They're probably gonna use Paul Giamatti later, but that's a whole other story. This movie also relies on a lot of convenient things happening, like no one noticing X, no one noticing Y, X, Y, and Z are in the perfect place at the perfect time, just so the plot can continue, that kind of stuff. You might not notice one or two of these, but the cumulative effect is kind of obvious. So what's the big takeaway here? The movie's exciting, the movie's funny, but there are parts of it that are really gonna aggravate and upset people. It's not a great movie, it's not a terrible movie, but it's not a flat, boring movie either. It's both great and terrible at different parts, and so it just kind of seesaws between the two, and I don't remember ever feeling that way about a movie before, so that's kind of interesting. I know a lot of you are going to see this movie regardless of my opinion on it, so if you do go see it, all I ask is that you think about it, so don't just praise the good parts without recognizing the bad parts. But I don't think it's fair to hate on the movie because of the bad parts. There are definitely good things in it, just not all of it is amazing. This movie's hard to recommend, it's hard to not recommend though, and this is from a guy who doesn't even like Spider-Man that much as a character. Granted, I don't really like spiders, so maybe that's where that comes from. That's all for today's video. Let me know what you thought down below in the comments. Don't forget, I want to be spoiler-free down there. Don't forget to subscribe, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Oh, and unlike this video, there is not a scene all the way at the end. There's an X-Men scene about halfway through the credits, but after that, it's just credits to the end.